Hello and welcome to the June Builder Town Hall. My name is Meredith Oliver, and we are so glad you're here. Genuinely, authentically glad you are here. Now, you're here for a reason, and we won't take too long to get to that reason, I promise you. We're going to do a couple of housekeeping items first, and then we will be well on our way to learning about having better conversations. So first, I just wanted to, in light of Memorial Day this week, I know this was the shortest, longest week ever, right? Anytime we have a short week, it feels like a very long week. But indeed, it was just this past Monday was Memorial Day. So for all of our town hall members, if you have a family member that made the ultimate sacrifice in serving in our military and our armed services, we thank you, the family, and we, of course, thank that military service member for what they have done. We have the opportunity to build homes, to have businesses, to conduct Builder Town Hall, to go to the pool this weekend or the beach or the mountains because of the brave men and women that keep our country free and make it a place, help make it a place that's worth living in, and make it really special. So we just want to acknowledge and honor that. And I wanted to say that first thing off the top. So I think most of you know me. If you don't, president and founder of Meredith Communications. We are a home builder marketing agency. We build custom, beautiful, kick butt websites for builders. We do really good search engine optimization services, social media marketing. If it's a digital marketing channel, we can help you. We're going to help you generate more leads that are going to turn into appointments out in the field at your model homes and then turn into contracts and sales. So because of this huge conversion that all of us on the marketing side of the business are making, I'm not going to do Meredith's metrics today because the data coming out of the old Google Analytics is getting really depreciated and not great. And then the new versions are really just up and running, and we're just beginning to understand what they're reporting. So we're not going to do metrics today. What I can tell you is out of all of the client Zoom meetings I did in May, and usually that's 30 to 40 a month, it's a lot. I talked to a lot of you through the month, big builders, small builders, volume, custom, every market all over the United States and Canada. And in those conversations, I can tell you that most of you said that your sales had downshifted. That's the word I'm using. We had a downshift, just a slowing, a cooling. I wouldn't be overly concerned about it. I don't think it's a consumer confidence issue. I think we had an interest rate hike in May. That always makes a difference. But I think it's more about people had personal obligations in May that they had to focus on, and that took up all of the extra space in their calendar, and fitting in finding a new home just didn't literally fit in their calendar. We had Mother's Day weekend. We had every college, every high school graduate in May. And then of course we had one of our big national holidays, Memorial Day weekend. Now, of course, people are still online while they're doing all of these celebrations. And so website traffic for builders, while I'm not going to go into the detailed metrics like I usually do, I would say it was only down about 10% total visits, downshifted about 10% May over April or May over March. Any of the months of 2023 so far, yeah, May was a touch slower, but not a big number. Not a big number. Where the difference was, like I said, is in them actually taking the couple of hours that they need to come walk one of your model homes or your inventory homes, really understand what you have to offer them, write contracts, finish contracts, do selections. Like it's time consuming. And in a month like May, you just aren't going to necessarily have as much bandwidth to do that. That's going to continue through the summer, folks, and it's probably going to get even more so. As we get into June, we'll have whole weeks that people will be out for vacation. Same with July. And then at whatever point kids finally go back to school, that is when people's free time will start to free up. Now, that's not going to be true, of course, for every buyer. Those of you doing 55 plus, school calendars and summer, specifically summer vacations, may not be as a big factor in your seasonality. If you're in a destination where people come there spring through summer because they're coming for the warm weather, and you've got a destination type community that you're selling, these might actually be your high water sales times. So again, it doesn't apply to everyone, but kind of your general single family builder, first time, second time move up products throughout the United States. Yeah, it's going to tighten up, which is exactly why I wanted to have this particular guest today. And I'm going to talk more about her and invite her on in just a minute. We're almost there. I promise you, we are almost there. The other thing I want to tell you is that this is going to come together for how I'm going to introduce our special guest. Is June is National Migraine Awareness Month. And as most of you know, I'm in my 3.5, almost 4-year battle with an intractable migraine that I've had since September the 20th, 2020, that has never stopped for 1 second of one day since September 2020. I have pursued every kind of treatment available. We are finally circling a really strong possibility for a diagnosis and treatment. So I'll take any good vibes. If you're a praying person, I'll take any of that you want. But how it relates to business and how it relates to what we're doing today, I was at the Austin National Speakers Association chapter, and I was their speaker for lunch that day. This was several years ago when I was still out speaking full-time because the migraine had not started yet. But I had started having them what is called episodic. That means randomly, here, this day, this day, this day. But I wasn't really paying attention. But what is interesting is as I look back on memories, the first thing I'll think when they come up on Facebook is I'll think to myself, my head really hurt that day. And that has happened so many more times than I knew at the time because I wasn't cognizant of it. I was pushing through. Don't do that. Number one, pay attention and listen to what your body's telling you. I mean, I pursued treatment early. I did, but unfortunately, we just didn't find the right answer yet, but we will. Anyway, as I look back on the day that I met Patti, I was speaking at the Austin chapter of the National Speakers Association, and I had a horrific migraine that day. I mean, it was off the chart, and it was so bad that it triggered a hot flash that left me dripping from the top of my head to the bottom. By the time I finished my talk, it was coming off the ends of my hair. It was embarrassing. It's very challenging to speak to a room of speakers. Like only people who maybe have a tendency to inflict pain on themselves voluntarily say, yes, I will come to the National Speakers Association chapter and I will speak in front of a room full of speakers. Well, it's very daunting as to begin with, much less with let's say on a scale of 1 to 10 pain, an 8 migraine, and a horrific hot flash. And I remember at the end of it being so frustrated and feeling like I did a terrible job. I ran really long, which is unusual for me. I'm usually spot on the money with my time because I respect everybody else's time. And I just thought, oh, this was not a good day. And so as I left the room, everybody was very nice. They were very kind, as the National Speakers Association people always are. But it just didn't, you know how on the inside, it just didn't feel like great. But as I left the room and I was pulling my stuff behind me, Patti was sitting there. And she was just sitting, there was some like lounge type of furniture kind of in the lobby of where the meeting was held. And she stopped me and smiled and struck up a conversation. Now, we had never met prior to this, even though we were both members of the National Speakers Association. But I instantly felt like calmer because she had a calmness about her. She was very kind, very encouraging. And by the time we finished our conversation, I thought to myself, well, maybe that wasn't that bad. Maybe no one noticed that it's literally dripping off the ends of my hair, and that my head was hurting so bad I could not see them sitting there. Like it was all a blur. And she did that. And how she did that was a simple conversation. So as I began to think about that our market would probably downshift as rates go up, as inflation goes up, as the summer heats up, I thought about what will we need? What is the skill our sales and marketing people will need to make every interaction count? They'll need to be able to have a really great conversation, an authentic, a genuine, a sales absolutely, or marketing absolutely conversation, but yet personable and friendly. Because if you're not going to get as many interactions because it's slowed a bit and people aren't in the market buying as fast as at the pace that they were, then you have to make every interaction count. And then when I thought about, okay, we want to have great conversations, have award-winning interactions, convert every person we talk to the next step of the process of buying a home from us, who could teach us that? And I thought, Patti can. Because you see, I met her briefly that day at the chapter, but she then connected with me on Facebook. And she and I have struck up a Facebook friendship ever since. We comment on each other's posts, we applause for each other, but that's really about the depth of the relationship. But yet I knew exactly who to call or message and invite today to help you get the skill that I think you're going to need moving forward. So without further ado, Patti, I'm going to invite you to turn your camera back on and take yourself off mute. There you are.
Hello.
Hello and welcome. So yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, how you came to this topic of being a great conversationalist, and tell us about what kind of work you presently do. Just kind of give us the background on you.
Well, first, I just want to say, when you were describing that day when you were in so much pain, you really were a wonderful speaker that day. And I think it's just a great message. We've all had bad days where we had to really fake it till we make it. And you did a great job. The wet, I never noticed the wet hair, any of that.
Oh my God, it was so wet.
Sometimes we are in our own pain, in our own heads.
We are.
So I just want to say that. But yes, so my background, so I'll try to make this the 50-cent version, I guess. I grew up in a mining town in northern Minnesota, and my grandfather and dad were the local Chevrolet dealers. And my grandfather started the business during the Great Depression, during a time when cars were brand new. They were the high-tech, product of the day. And between the both of them, they built that business one conversation at a time.
Wow.
And I grew up watching this, and of course worked for the business during my high school and college years, and thought, how lame is it to work for my dad? And now I look back and just think I learned so many valuable lessons there. Moved to Texas in the 1980s, did some marketing communications. I've always been a writer, always been a communicator. And in 2011, I came out with my very first book, The Intentional Networker, which looks like this.
Mm-hmm.
And because I learned in my own business that networking better is much better than networking more. You can go to a lot of events, hand out lots of business cards, talk to a lot of people, and it won't make the same impression if you're not trying to do it better. So there again, there's the one conversation at a time thing. But most recently, I've come out with my new book, which is More Than Just Talk, which is all about conversation, because it's the prequel. It answers the question that I've been hearing from people about, networking. Yeah, but what about just what do I say? What do I do? How do I make that connection that is meaningful, like you and I had, Meredith, that day? I don't know, we just sort of clicked with each other. And
we did.
I think you were really open because you were having such a rough time, and which I didn't even really realize at the time. And you're always just a very gracious human being. So what's not to love about that? So my work right now is I speak, I do workshops, I do podcast related things, I blog, I am doing conversation salons in my home. I'm doing anything that relates to having better conversations, because I really, really, truly believe we need this now in business and in life.
Yes. And the pandemic certainly didn't do us any favors on having conversations, because we ended up having them with the same people that we were quote unquote locked down with. And at some point, we just got tired of those conversations.
And you get depressed. I mean, I will tell you, we were in trouble. We Americans were in trouble with our conversations way before the pandemic.
Way before.
It's been 20-year thing.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is even those little conversations, like acknowledging the person in the grocery store who's checking your groceries, acknowledging the lady at the dry cleaning place who's, getting your shirts cleaned, acknowledging your neighbors, just quick little conversations where we say hello, good morning, how's it going? They physically give us a burst of oxytocin, which is a feel good, tend and befriend hormone. And so during the pandemic, we were cut off from a lot of our happiness.
And that was actually was my first question, because as I was reading the book, I thought it was really interesting. One of your first points you made, as we tend to think about being friendly as being a gift to the person you're being friendly to, but maybe we don't realize that it really is a gift. It's a little shot of oxytocin for ourselves as well. And so there's real benefit in even those quick connections.
Right. I mean, acknowledgement is one of the very first things they teach at the School of Protocol in Washington, which is where people go to learn how to be better business people, diplomats, stateswomen. Acknowledging the people in your presence is the very basic. And how often, this is a fun thing to just pay attention to. Like during the weekend, I'm going to ask everybody, pay attention to whether your neighbors, the people at the gym, at the grocery store, how often do people just blow right by you and they don't even give you a nod or a good morning or eye contact or anything? It's like we're avoiding each other in this day and age. It's really kind of fun. It's fun and sad at the same time to watch this.
Yeah. And you never know what is going on with someone on that particular day. So I try to think of it as a snapshot interaction, and that interaction, they weren't as friendly as I'd hoped, or they kind of blew by me, but maybe next time, we'll connect.
Next time.
Yeah.
It's interesting you talked about model homes. I had an experience a few years ago where I was thinking about selling my house, and there were some model homes I was going to, and there was one gentleman, and I forget, I'm not even going to mention what home builder it was, but he was so gracious and not, not aggressive. He was just very friendly, helpful, could make small talk, could talk about the home. He was just like a very pleasant presence. And when I went back the second time, there was somebody else there who didn't have the same skills. It was a completely different experience. And I didn't like it.
No,
It was, I
no.
mean, it's such an important thing in sales.
Yes.
Are you exuding warmth and graciousness and true friendliness, or are you just interested in the sale?
Yes. And Kerry particularly, and she'll be on it a little bit later, when she's working with salespeople and doing her coaching, certainly she's coaching them, giving them ideas of what to say, how to greet people. But people that do it well, it comes from a place of genuine curiosity and interest.
And caring.
Yes, and caring. So how do you shift that? Like, if you're a person that wants to come across that way, but for some reason you're not, how do you kind of turn that around or find that within yourself?
Oh boy, I think there are a number of things. One is to care about other people. If you don't truly care about other people, that comes across.
Yeah.
If it's all about you and it's what's going on in your head and you're worried about, you're self-conscious, or you're just not interested, you cannot fake caring. You just can't.
No.
And I would highly recommend it if anybody wants to go to my website, which if you go to intentionalnetworker.com, a pop-up will come up, and it will, if you fill it out, you get access to a free chapter of my book. And I believe it's the 4 C's. And one of those is caring, courage, curiosity, and oh boy, I'm having a blank.
It'll come to you.
But caring.
Yeah.
And being authentic. And here's a really interesting one that I learned while I was doing my research. Assume positive rapport.
Yes.
Which means assume that the person you're talking to, someone
Yes.
coming into your home, someone coming into your office, someone coming in, someone you're going to talk to in a grocery store, assume that they will like you. Most likely they will. And what happens is when we get all worried about ourselves, or what do I say, or it feels so awkward, that is showing. And how does that make the other person feel? Awkward, weird.
Yeah.
Like it's just too much work. So, I mean, some people will like you.
Yeah. I used to, when I was first speaking publicly, getting paid to talk, or way back when I was still singing, performing, and doing those types of things, I remember in the early days, it was almost like I was watching myself over my shoulder.
Yes.
And one of my coaches said, as long as you're doing that, and what you're most aware of is self and not the audience, this is not going to come across as powerfully as if you've practiced, you've put in the work. Like what you're saying, they're going to like you. Assume that it's going to go in a positive way, right, and let go of how am I doing? Did I hit the note? Did I not? And just tell the story, right, of the song, or give the speech in a way. Right. And when it's about the audience, it totally changes it.
One of my wise mentors told me to, take that critic that's sitting on your shoulder or looking down take that person and tell them, you go sit in the corner over there, and later we'll go have ice cream.
Oh, I love that.
Or okay, you take a break, let me do this, and later we'll talk about, if you had something you wanted to tell me. Yeah, so I think if you ask most people who are socially awkward what's going on in their head, it's about, I feel so socially awkward.
Yeah.
And as long as you're feeling that way, that's an inner criticism, inner process. And as long as that's in there, you're going to exude awkwardness. And it just makes it hard for other people. It makes them, they're having to do all the work they're having to make themselves feel good, and they're trying to make you feel good too. And I think there's work to be done inside. And I don't know, that's above my pay grade, taking care of all that.
I know. but it's a great point, and I love the idea of kind of separating that and putting that over here. So any of you, as you're listening, if you're thinking you don't maybe get paid to be a professional speaker, but maybe you have to run a sales meeting once a week, or maybe you're the owner of the company and you're going to have an all hands meeting coming up, and you want to communicate in an effective way, or hey, you've got a one-on-one coming in of a employee that you're going to do an annual review on. Again, setting that critic to the side will really help you come across more genuine.
Right.
I think maybe a lot of us assume that we're better at conversations than maybe we are. And you talked in the book kind of about how to evaluate your skills, your conversation skills.
Right.
Are there some tips that you might have on, being as objective as possible about, this is really where my strengths are, this is where I need to work some more on having more meaningful conversations? How do you evaluate it?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say I'm still constantly evaluating myself. I mean, just because I do these things doesn't mean I'm a perfect conversationalist. I still am doing the work. And I think we all need to do the work. Self-awareness is start paying attention. And a big one is, how much are you talking versus listening? I just published a blog this week about the gift of gab, which a lot of people are very convinced that if they have the gift of gab, and they feel comfortable talking to anybody about anything at any time, that may be a gift, but it may not be. It might mean you're an overtalker. And there are a lot of overtalkers out there.
Yeah.
So pay attention to how often are you interrupting? How often are you speaking for more than, say, 40 seconds, which is a guideline? 40 seconds, right. If you're talking for 3, 4, 5 minutes at a time and have not taken a breath or let the other person speak, that's probably something you should work on. And maybe ask yourself, why do I feel compelled to talk? There's actually an acronym too, WAIT, W-A-I-T, why am I talking? That's in the book too. Yeah, why am I talking?
I think all of my elementary school teachers wanted to know that about little Meredith. I was Miller back then, about little Meredith Miller. Could somebody please teach her weight? Because I was.
And sometimes it's excitement, sometimes it's nervousness, sometimes it's caffeine, sometimes it's alcohol. Sometimes it's just you feel like you have something you want to share. And so there are those. And here's another one about talking versus listening. We should be listening 60% of the time, talking 40% of the time.
Oh.
And when you're in sales, you may even adjust that to 70-30. Ask a question that might reveal something important that you need to know about this potential client, customer, prospect, and then let the person answer the question.
Yeah.
But self-awareness, start paying attention to, am I a good listener? Do I interrupt? I interrupt. I know I'm an interrupter. I get excited. I interrupt. Are you talking too much? Are you asking questions that are bringing out answers? I was on a podcast a few days ago with a woman who said she struggled with being at networking events and asking questions and only getting yes and no answers from people. And I suggested change the questions. It may come up with questions that require more than yes or no.
Well, I liked in the book how you gave some conversation starters to get that small talk going.
Right.
Because we all, not all, but some of us loathe small talk. Not me personally, but I know people that their personality type, perhaps, or social anxiety, for whatever variety of reasons, they loathe small talk. But you did give some very specific ways to get a conversation going in a more open manner.
Right.
I believe you talked about go ahead and comment on the weather. My favorite, and the one that I use constantly, but I use it in a very genuine way, and I only use it if I can be genuine, is a genuine compliment.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And even in a sales work environment, if I'm meeting somebody new for the first time and they have a great background on their Zoom, or if it's virtual, for example, or if we're in person and they make a great point, or I just find a way to give some genuine, wow, that's really great. I love that.
Yeah, a compliment is great. An appropriate comment, comment on someone's earrings, comment on, you're always so thoughtful with your answers, or you're always so kind. Like there's a woman at one of my local grocery stores that is always so friendly and kind. And she has a great reputation for being that way. And one of the stories I tell about her is I was walking through the parking lot. I'm just alongside an older woman who was also working her way into the store. And we started talking about this person whose name is Lisa. The other lady said, Lisa is so sweet, yet she's even nice to her husband. Oh, had a great laugh. And I always compliment her on, no matter what kind of a day she's having, she is always kind. And I bet she's faking it a lot, but
sure,
she's the effort.
But just because you're quote faking it doesn't, you still are. There's just times that you make a choice to show who you really are, even when you don't feel like doing it.
Right.
For a physical reason, an emotional reason, a mental reason, whatever that is, but you choose to do it anyway. Now, if you're faking it because you really are not kind, and in your mind you're thinking something horrific about the person, then that it's not going to work for you.
So, I mean, when you weren't feeling well and you were still being kind, that kindness was still genuine.
Yes.
You're not feeling all, kumbaya and sunshiny and roses and all that. But I believe that even when people are faking it, you can tell the difference between they're faking it and still being kind or genuine or happy, maybe not happy, but
it's who they are.
The light is still coming out. And I think a lot of us, our light has been squashed. And I often tell people who are having a really rough time with their conversations, look at your life. Look at your job, look at your relationships, look at how you talk to yourself. How are you talking to yourself internally? Because that will come out in your outer conversations as well.
Yes.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome, Kerry.
Hi, Kerry.
Hi, Patti. I'm so glad to be part of this and listening in the background, and then looking at having read the book and go over all these things. And as I've been listening to hear versus listening to talk, and the reason why I couldn't talk is I was muted, which you really do need to mute me sometimes. So I appreciate all this. And I think that one of the things is, in the last little things that you were talking about, was if you have the eye contact, the ability to do that, and if you have the ability to smile, let that be your default to becoming or appearing genuine. Which brings me to, when you talk about learning how to do the conversations and with kids today that don't, because their conversation is on a device, which does not look up, it does not have expression. So when we are in an expressionless communicative world, which we kind of are, it's like, if that's what it's going to be, how do we evoke conversations? Those kinds of things. Yes. So in the book, you talked about drainers and downers.
One of my favorite sections.
I loved it. And tactics. So we're to the meat of the tactics that everybody's like, okay, here comes Kerry, the taskmaster, get your notes ready, talk about drainers and downers.
Talk about drainers and downers with some tasks. Okay. Well, first of all, I think we all have people in our lives or at work who are, and we're not talking about someone who's having a bad day or is, a rough patch. We're talking about someone, a drainer and downer is someone who is chronically negative, needy, gossipy, complainy. I mean, if there's something negative in the vicinity, they will find it and focus on it. Now, I will say these people are toxic. We cannot change them. So we have to manage how we deal with them. I mean, it's like drinking Windex. Would you do that?
Fun. I try that all the time.
Oh, no, we think, oh, that poor person. Oh, my poor mother-in-law. She calls me every Wednesday and talks my ear off complaining for an hour, but I feel like I have to do it. Okay, so if you're into that kind of, torture, I guess that's your thing. Anyway, so drainers and downers. So there's a whole range of ways you can deal with drainers and downers. One is to avoid them as often as possible. There is a woman that I had a weird situation with about 20 some years ago. She goes to my gym now. She's in that locker room every other time I'm in there. I have learned that if I'm within 5 feet of her or we run into each other in the hall, I acknowledge her, I say good morning. I don't even just say good morning and I keep walking. When I'm in the locker room and she's in there, I do not speak to her. And I don't like that, but I've learned the hard way that I don't want to resurrect the horrible experience I had 20 years ago.
But here's one for you, Patti, that I get that. And we understand those people will not build us up for the day. So find someone who will. However, go to this setting with me. You're in a model home and a drainer or a downer walks in. You are not able to lock the door, tell them to take excellence elsewhere.
Take a hike.
You are not able to put the blinds down. You have to turn them around because our drainer and downer sometimes are our buyers.
Okay. If that's what you want, that's a choice. That's a choice. Okay, so I will say you can manage a drainer and downer. Like I said, talked about, there's a spectrum, total avoidance versus let's sit down and hear every single one of your gripes, complaints. Like I tell this story in the book. I had a friend who had a person on her board who was a backstabbing, gossipy, temper tantrum throwing board member. And so my friend took her to lunch and she brought a big fat notepad with her and said, we are going to go through every single one of your issues, complaints, what isn't right. And once they got them all down, of course, I use the term gird your loins because it is not for the faint of heart to do this.
You say that all the time.
Set aside a bunch of time. But she figured she had to do this. And then they sorted out the problems. These problems we cannot fix. This is just how it is. This problem is your problem. It's something you need that's special. We can't offer that.
Yep.
Third group, we can work with these. And so you get it all out on the table. And sometimes I think people haven't been heard or acknowledged or respected.
Yes.
And their negativity, maybe I don't know. Their negativity comes from that, or maybe it's something that is so far back in their life.
Yes, 100%. So with that, to all of our people, understand that exactly what Patti just told us has great content and meaning to the person that we've already sold, right? And now they're coming back, and how do we contain them? How do we bring them down? It's like, this is what we can do, can't do. This is what you can and can't do. And I think to get better conversations after the purchase, during construction, which is a tool that we are in need of because the buyer is a little demanding right now. So that is absolutely perfect for bought. Now, who are they?
Well, and here's another point, Kerry. You have to decide, how much. There are people who are particular, okay? And then there are people who are mean, nasty. It's a lawsuit waiting to happen. They are abusive to your people. I used to work for an advertising agency, and the woman who owned the agency was so protective of us, and we did such a good job for her that she would not allow us to be abused. Yep. So there's abuse. So you don't have, when you say, well, it's not polite to, show somebody the door or to interrupt them as they're, who's really being impolite. So I feel like there's a designation there
Yeah.
between a particular client
Yes,
and one who is just going to be mean, nasty, and just
right.
suck everybody's energy and time. So
Yes.
make that designation.
Yeah, and I think that that's helpful for everybody. And you also implemented a little twist to sales managers and builders. Take heed that when your front line salesperson who needs to stay positive has this struggle, some of those hard, direct conversations, you need to either give them, because you spoke to your toolkit, that or help. I
Yeah.
think it's valuable because these people that are listening to us right now are engaging in conversations all the time.
Right.
And how do they reel them in, and how do they network with them? And when I saw more than just talk, for me, what I'm really looking, because you've done this so well and eloquently in your books and stuff, is to talk about and help people over, and you've referred to it, the awkwardness for the conversations. Because here's what Meredith and I get all the time. Video is so invaluable right now. Like, just shoot a quick 10-second video, right? To somebody. Well, they all feel, they don't know what would be my first word, what would be my last word. And so what happens is they don't. So help us with the start and the finish, or the start and the completion, whatever, to a really great conversation.
Well, if we're talking about videos, like what do I do on a video? My thing, when I send someone a video, like I don't use them enough for my business. I probably should. But I get a lot of requests for, like, so-and-so's having a birthday, so-and-so, whatever, or send a message to so-and-so, they're sick in the hospital or whatever. I make a few notes about what do I really want to, what kind of mood or wish do I want to convey to them? Big picture.
Yeah,
I don't script myself. I am so not. A lot of my speaking colleagues are very scripted. I'm not. I'm an improv girl. I went
random.
I've learned how to think on my feet, which is a great gift because you don't know what is going to happen.
Yes.
Like right now, I have my yard guy right outside my window. I hope you cannot hear that.
Nope.
But think about the big picture messages and just think on it for a moment, and then let go and be yourself. And I think that's what conversation is. Have some idea. Like, there's some really great exercises in my book on defining what is a better conversation for you personally. What with a company, what do we want our conversations with our potential clients and our current clients to sound like, feel like? What's the mood? What are, do we want to be gracious? Do we want to be kind?
And is that what the call is? Like, really what you're also helping us with is,
what is the goal?
Reverse engineer a little bit.
That's right.
Don't say, I gotta go into this right now. What we're really saying is, before you do this, what is your end result that you're looking to do? Is it great? Why? Is it informative?
Yeah.
What is it? And if you have that, like, little bit of plan, like plan versus canned, right? That it won't be hard to pick up the conversation or the video or the meet and greet.
Absolutely. And I feel that way about the whole concept of the networking elevator pitch. I mean, to me, like, I'll meet somebody who's so lovely, and then it's time for us to share our elevator pitch, 30 seconds about who we are, what we do. And that lovely person just has memorized something scripted, and it sounds fake. It sounds over rehearsed. It doesn't sound natural.
And they've made up a title, and they've made up like a service, and you don't even know what it does.
You don't even understand.
You're like, that sounds really cool. Like, somebody who paid a consultant to come up with a catchy thing, but I don't know what that does.
Right. Now, I started using the one conversation at a time thing just recently, but I just injected it where it's appropriate. And it really is, life is about one conversation at a time.
Yes.
Yeah. A relationship is.
Well, and to your point, And Mara, what we're talking about to everybody is understanding, like, you've got one conversation at a time, right? Like when you're in that one, be present.
Be there. Yes.
Don't combine the next one because you overtalk. But I think that I feel like continual conversational competence is
Yes.
what will
Ooh, that's
build
brilliant.
people to understand that if you are continually working towards conversational competence, none of these little things are going to be hard. The video, your uncomfortable conversations, because you have built within your inner self the continual conversation competence gene
Right.
that we don't have. So for a second, talk about where do you start? If you're not a conversationalist, now Meredith, we can shut our ears because we could talk to a wall, but there are people who actually are very genuine and good in sales, and I'm sure on this call, but that's not their backup gene that I can have a good conversation with somebody. Where do you start?
Well, first of all, you have to start with the term social intelligence. And social intelligence is something we start to learn when we're little kids, and we learn on the playground, or we learn at daycare, or we learn it with play dates, things that work and don't work with other people. That's our social, what we can talk about that makes for a better, everybody feeling better. Is this working? Is this not working? And social intelligence can be improved throughout our entire lives.
Yes.
So when someone comes to me and says, well, I'm just shy, or I'm just introverted, which are two different things. I can explain that.
Yeah.
My response is, I'm not good at push-ups, okay? And if I want to get good at push-ups, I need to do more push-ups, which I don't do, which I should. Anyway,
with some confidence.
Well, anyone who says, I'm just not good at this, it means you just haven't had good role models. You didn't have good opportunities to expand your social intelligence, and it's just something you'll have to work on. It's
correct. I'm not good at this.
That's
canned in our industry with sales people, but yet they are good at it. They really are. And I wish for everybody that's on this to understand you are enough. You just have to get competent yourself at knowing you are, because becoming a conversationalist is a journey. It's not a gene.
It's definitely a journey.
And I think that where it really comes together is as you develop that push-up muscle, you begin to have confidence in your competence. So you begin to know that I can begin, I can jump in, or I can finish any conversation that I need to.
And here's a big point. The reason why I called the book More Than Just Talk is because the question I kept getting was, what do I say?
Yeah.
Okay, so talking is not the only part of conversing. It's again, it's listening, but it's also, I think one of the number one tips about good conversation is having good questions.
Yes.
Having good questions. And that's why the entire appendix of my book, which you can get for free off my website, is all kinds of questions sorted by setting, situation, and using these as ways to start conversations, shift conversations, manage conversations, end conversations that aren't,
sometimes you need to
go back to a drainer and downer that's just being really ugly and abusive. A person at a model home, a sales representative might say, please forgive me. I need to go take care of some of my other. There are other people here that, please forgive me. I need to go make a call, and just exit. And
exit stage left.
Peace out. Yes. And the great part about it, Patti, and you nail it, is that questions typically, we talk about open-ended and closed-ended, but a question still is looking for a result. It's kind of yes or no. How do you create a question that goes to a conversation? Because question has start and stop. Conversation, when you're in one, you're like, we got to stop. We'll be here for 5 hours the way we're talking and never buy a home. You know,
Right.
they flow for a long time. So make your questions conversational.
Make them conversational, but you still have to have a purpose. You still have to have a
Yes,
purpose.
yes,
Like, for example, one of my chapters is the 4 Ps,
yes.
and it's being proactive. And I'm saying them in a different order than they are in the book. I would have done it differently. If now I'm going back going, oh, I should have changed that. Being proactive,
Yep,
greeting people, acknowledging them, being purposeful,
yep.
but yet also being, and I love this word, a possibilitarian. Like someone may walk in and maybe they're looking for a home, but maybe they also have a friend who is also looking for a home, or maybe they're looking to buy, they love your homes. Maybe they're going to ask, do you also build these in Phoenix or in Houston or in wherever? So be open to possibilities, and then finally keep it positive. And if the conversation is not positive, maybe it's not the conversation that needs to be having, that you need to be having.
Mhm.
It's not the time,
Yes, to
the
your
place.
point, I'm gonna put those 4 Ps in a minute, because our 4 Ps currently are product, place, person, promotion, right? Yuck. But switching it to your Ps will be part of what everyone can take away today.
Yeah.
So
While
I-
you do that, I'm gonna
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of bring everything together
please
and
do.
and draw us up, because it's 6 minutes to 1. It's like
No.
flown by. This conversation has flown by, and there's a couple of things I definitely wanted to cover. One
Got
of the things I wanted to make sure people knew is that your hobby, Patti, is painting.
Mhm.
And she does beautiful work. Not like painting houses. I mean, in this industry, I don't want to assume like painting art.
Although I do
And-
paint this office, and I'm really good at the cutting in thing.
Oh, I bet you are. She does absolutely beautiful work, and shares that you share it on your Facebook page.
I do.
I think most of it, do you do it for yourself or you do it for others, or?
I've done a few commission pieces, but I mostly do it for myself. It's just fun. It's fun to create things. It's fun to, I mean, I have a box of, you know, the abstract things I'm working on, and I have a couple of things I want to go get framed, but you know, I'll probably sell some of them at some point. You know, it's sort of like my insurance. Like I know as long as I can do art, I know I'll never starve.
Uh-huh. And so I believe that's how the cover of the book came about, right?
Yes.
That cover is
Yeah.
one of her paintings.
Yes, it is.
Custom. Isn't that incredible? So if you go, if you connect on Facebook with her, you'll see the different pieces there, and you can see that whole piece that ended up coming to be the front cover of the book, which I just thought was really cool and
Yeah.
put such a obvious personal touch on it. But again, use your noggin, folks. That's called a conversation starter. And that's why we merchandise your model homes, you know, with really cool wallpaper or backsplash tile, or that's why your builder does those things, because they are points and moments to begin a conversation where somebody might say to you, that is beautiful, you know. And so I wanted to point that out because it's such a good illustration of what you're doing here today. Intentional conversation. I love that. As we wrap things up, we always ask here, last question. You know, if somebody wants to take one thing, you know, the whole one thing, I always am a little offended. I'm like, if you didn't get a list of things, you weren't paying attention. But if somebody wants to get one thing from today, or if there's one thing that you haven't told us yet, what would you say we could benefit from?
And I'm assuming you're asking me this question.
I am.
I think the main thing is we can do this. We can. Even if you think I'm not good at conversation, that's sort of like what you were going through, Meredith. Your head hurts so badly and you're thinking, I'm dripping, I had no idea. I had no idea it was that bad, because you were so brilliant and friendly and glowing, and wow, and now I'm like, you know, impressed times 100 at that. So a lot of our own hangups are in our own heads, and
They really
again, I'm
are.
not a psychologist, I'm not a therapist, but do some reflection on why is this tough for you? And if it's because I'm nervous, because I don't want to look stupid, I feel like I don't know what to say, get a copy of my book. Honestly, more than just talk, it's available on Amazon and any online retailer. And just pop it open, read it front to back, read the section that calls to you, pop it open every morning while you're making your coffee and see what the universe has in store for you as a message. I mean, just do it your way. That's the way I wrote it. But
Yeah.
learning some of the little tricks, all of a sudden you will have these eureka moments on, oh, I can do this. And that's what I want for you, is that.
And
that's why I wrote this book.
And I've been in this very difficult health journey I've been in, of course, I'm looking for the gifts of it to try to find those positive things. And I will say one of them is I've learned how little people think about you or realize what is happening with you. It's our own inner critic that is saying, you're dripping, you're doing this, you're doing that. It's not, and honestly, nobody in all of the different occasions that I can remember, I was having a hard time. Nobody knew. And that's great, because that means I was there to do my job. I did my job, and I didn't let something personal get in the way of doing that. And that's what I wanted to do as a professional, right? But at the same time, so much of what you're hung up about in terms of your ability to deliver a great conversation is really just within you, and we can't see it, notice it. We have no idea. We have no idea.
I mean, we have to try to be the best version of the person we are in this moment.
Yes.
In this moment. And you said it, Kerry, you said, be in this conversation right now. Don't jump ahead 3 steps. And I think sometimes in sales, people rush the process.
Yes.
You miss the moment. You miss the moment when you get ahead to the next conversation. But I know we're at time, Mare, but
we are.
So I'm going to say one thing, and then I will be all done to you two, is that I know she was querying that could I ever be done? Haha. Is that right now, so many people are living on their pipeline of people to sell. And one of their biggest things is I can't follow up with them again with the same question or answer or thing. But from you and conversations today, what I will tell everybody is what you got out of a conversation is your follow-up. So increase your conversation, increase your follow-up.
Well, and be a person too. Like, let's say you have a potential customer that mentioned they like wine. Okay.
Yes.
What if you called them and said, I was just at a class at Total Wine or wherever, and I found this beautiful Pinot Noir that you mentioned you like, and we think it's delicious and it's at this great price point and they have it there. And I just wanted to call to tell you that, totally unrelated to the sales. What have you just done? You've made a connection to this person as a person.
Yes.
Like, who does not absolutely love that?
And you can only do that if you were listening more than you were talking, because they would never get to tell you about the wine if you did all the talking.
That's right. That's right. Be a person. I mean, I learned that from my dad. He was not selling cars all the time. He was just interested in people and what they were doing. And
all right.
That's
well, if you scroll up to the very top of our chat today, the links to Patti's website, to Amazon, the book on Amazon, the links to our May town hall recordings, everything is there. All you gotta do is scroll all the way up. If you're listening after the facts, if you're listening to the recorded version right now, I'll put these same links in the Facebook group and in the comments on the audio only version that I post in SoundCloud. So they'll be everywhere, so you can access all the information that was discussed here today. Patti, thank you so much for going on the Builder Town Hall ride with us today. We really appreciate you.
Pleasure.
Yeah. And Kerry,
and Angela,
thank you.
We missed you.
And Angela, we missed you today, but we know you're working hard, and we know that you're going to have a great day. You're going to do great. All right. Thank you guys. Have a good rest of your day. Talk
Thanks,
soon.
ladies. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.